Let's start by adding a couple of things to our notes. gparted fdisk cfdisk is Linux disk partitioning tools. mkfs, and then whatever your file system type is, this will create a file system on a partition. And then mounts a partition with a file system on a folder. That's pretty much what we've done so far. Let's create a different type of virtual file system where we don't even have to turn off the computer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cd to home student. And I'll mkdir test dir. And let's just do some work here. Whatever it is, it's a blank directory. Now, this is a command that I like to introduce at this point in the year because we use it later on for numerous things, and it is the dd command. dd is short for, it's often referred to online as destroy disk. dd will take zeros and ones, and it will write them and read them wherever you want. So I could write zeros and ones directly to dev.sda right now. And remember, dev.sda contains the file system I'm working on, and I would essentially destroy the operating system. And we're going to look at sort of how we can use dd to create files and turn them into file systems. Now, we're going to utilize a special device on Linux. We have dev.sda and dev.sdb, as we know. But if I ls here /dev, one of those special devices that I've talked about before, I believe, is the dev0 device. And dev0 essentially produces zeros. When you call dev0, or null bytes really, it will just start writing out null bytes. So we're going to use that functionality. We're going to make, we need something that's just going to hand us a whole lot of zeros, and dev0 is that thing. So I'm going to use dd, and we're going to say if, which stands for input file. I'm going to say equals /dev/0. And then I'm going to say output file of equals, and we're going to keep it relative. We could place this anywhere on the file system. We're not going to preface this with a slash or anything. We're going to create a file right here. And I'm going to call this my_drive. We can call it anything we want, .dd. Now, if I were to put something like /dev/sda and hit enter right now, I would destroy this system. But we're going to output zeros to mydrive.dd, but we don't want it to do that infinitely. Okay, we want to say bs equals, which is byte size. Let's do it in 1 megabyte at a time. So we're going to write 1 megabyte of zeros just right after another. And then I'm going to do a count equals, 30. So this will write 30 megabytes of zeros to a file called mydrive.dd right here. We're just going to move a bunch of zeros in. Here we go. 30 records in, 30 records out, 31 megabytes. And if I do an ls, you can see we have mydrive.dd. So now we have this file on the disk, and we can run the file command on files, and it will tell us what type of file this is. In this case, it's not able to determine, so it just tells us this is data. It's all zeros. So I'm going to run cfdisk mydrive.dd, and let's take this file and let's put a partition table on it. GPT is fine. You can see that we have a 29 megabyte. I'm going to create a new partition. We're going to make it a Linux file system. I'm going to go ahead and say write. And again, we have to type yes. And I'm going to go ahead and quit. So let's go ahead and create mkdir, and I'll call this new drive new drive 2 just to distinguish it, even though we could call it new drive here. There's no folder called new drive here. And now I should be able to do, we have to create a file system. So mkfs, let's do .fat, file allocation table. That would just be mydrive.dd. So it'll go through and it'll create a file system on that file we just created. Now I can mount mydrive.dd into new, there it is, new drive 2. And if I cd into new drive 2, we can see that that's blank. This is a FAT file system, so there's no lost and found. Let's do a df-h. We can see that we have a 30 megabyte hard drive that's been placed onto new drive 2. But the actual device itself isn't mydrive.dd. It's dev loop 9, and these loop devices are virtual devices that the computer uses to mount files like this. So I could go in now and I could do something, and we'll have some CTFs like this and capture the flags, right? Where I could pico, flag.text. If you're in my class, I could give you a flag, DD123. And so we have flag.text. Let's look at what happens when we unmount a file system, because we haven't done that yet. So I'm going to come back to test directory, and all you have to type is umount new drive 2. So let's cd into new drive 2 and do ls, and you can see that that file I just created is gone. Take a second and do that. And so you make it a CTF like this, where you see a file, you're not sure what it is. And so you try to mount it. So I would mount, my drive DD on new drive 2, cd into it, and you see here that here's a text file. Pretty common for CTFs to have that type of thing as well. All right, so let's do this for a checkpoint then, because you've worked through some things. I think you deserve credit. Let's do a df-h and just go ahead and demonstrate to the instructor that you have a 30 megabyte file that has been mounted to a folder somewhere on the system. And you can see here that I'll, for checkpoint 2 video 4, demonstrate that you have a 30 megabyte drive mounted from dev loop, and I put an X here. Mine was loop 9. Who knows what yours is? And that will be for credits. All right, thank you. In the next video, we will continue to move forward with this.